How would you feel about school taking up an extra hour every day to teach basic, adult stuff, like washing clothes, basic cooking, paying taxes? I'd be opposed to the extra hour. But not the activities. School was already an 8-hour-a-day thing. Pushing it up to 9 hours means it actually becomes longer than a full-time job. And that's before you get to homework and shit like that. If anything, the school day should be shorter. Or keep it 8 hours in the building, but leave 2 or 3 of those for students to work on homework with a teacher around when they need help, guidance, or just for them to socialize in a somewhat structured way. Expecting teens to maintain any level of engagement and discipline for 8 hours straight is psychotic. It's a system built by nerds and sadists. This is the real issue every time this comes up and why I'm against it. On top of that, this is the information age. You don't need to be a wizard to figure stuff out when it's literally all at your fingertips. Go ahead and Google, "How do I wash my clothes?" and you can undoubtedly find hours of YouTube videos demonstrating exactly that. People need to take the tiniest bit of initiative and not just expect it all to be spoon-fed. Exactly. We had budgeting and taxes included in our mandatory maths classes. 90% now complain about not learning any real-life skills. We also had mandatory cooking, and even though we learned a lot, there was much sexism going around to avoid working. 14-years-old boy suck and will use any excuse, so I guess not everyone learnt anything there. This used to be called home EC and most schools had it. Then boomers did away with it because it cost too much. Now they make fun of young people for not knowing things they would have learned in home EC. In my high school, home EC was for girls, and all the guys took wood shop. I'd spent a few hours a weekend helping my dad build stuff since I was little, and I decided I'd rather hang out with girls for an hour than build a birdhouse or something. Best decision ever. We made cakes, learned how to negotiate rent, and sewed clothing. It wasn't exactly academically challenging, but it was a lot of fun. No regrets at all on that one. Home economics in most schools taught cooking and sewing. Not actual economics stuff like establishing a budget, understanding how stocks and dollar-cost averaging investment works, or how crippling credit card debt is. If you learned any of that at all, it was usually a unit in math class. Source: Gen Xer who learned how to make a pizza from scratch and sew a pillow in home EC. Schools have these already and the kids in them don't care. It's not immediately relevant to their lives, so they don't pay attention. Sorta like if I were to talk to you about the do's and don'ts of denture cream. You say, I'll figure it out later when I need to know it, and stop paying attention. I've taught in several schools that have tried to teach social skills, kindness, meditation, financial literacy, etc. In every case, the kids did not care. It was their least favorite part of the day because it felt like a waste of time. The point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. A well-educated student can teach themselves these things. A quick Google search can teach you how to file taxes, cook, etc. But you can't Google how to do Algebra 2 and expect to understand what you read without some background in the subject matter. And the point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. That's a fair point. My science classes definitely have helped with cooking, as they taught problem solving and analysis, which is very useful when you need to rescue a recipe or want to experiment. I am opposed to it. There's no reason parents can't teach these things to their kids while doing said tasks. School isn't responsible for every single thing. Also, with the internet, if a parent doesn't know changing a tire, for example, they can easily learn. Yup, school can't teach literally everything. Most of what you need to learn outside of school can be done with skills you get in school. Laundry and basic cooking isn't that hard as long as you have the skills to complete high school. I think it should be optional because not everyone has a parental figure that will teach these things though. Those are the things that a competent parent should teach their child. Wow, really? It's 6 hours in Australia and I kind of just assumed it was the same everywhere. Agreed. And not all of us have competent parents. That's just home EC. They do it already. It's called life skills here. Edit. 8 hours. It's only 6 here and we get it done. WTF you wasting 3 hours on every day? I would disagree. This is stuff that should be taught during school, not adding on to it. I would say the parents should be doing that. Why even have the kid if you want the teachers to raise them? I think that they already waste enough time and it would be worse for kids whose parents already taught them that stuff. Washing clothes is really a 20-minute lesson, and cooking taxes have their own elective classes already. Washing clothes. So you put the clothes in, some detergent, push a button, then dryer, then a hanger. If you can't figure out washing clothes or cooking on your own, definitely shouldn't be allowed to drive. Taxes, debt and personal finance is something that should be taught. Don't forget civics. We need to start teaching civics again so people learn how bills and elections work and that there's nothing fucking mysterious about it. My rural ass school did this in the home EC, sewing, taxes, cooking, woodworking, etc. Could even get into metalworking, accounting, quilting, pottery, etc. if you wanted to. My home EC class had groups of 3 students try to make one pot of spaghetti, and every single group spaghetti was inedible in different ways, and it made me afraid to try cooking again. Home EC is where I learned to sew a cat face pillow, make a bechamel white sauce, change the oil in my car, and file my taxes. And speaking of taxes, why are my taxes going into some billionaire's pocket instead of paying teachers to teach kids these basic skills? My school did the same. I was a good student, but at that age you just don't realize the valuable information they're giving you. You kept the information long enough to pass the tests, and then you went and got alcohol poisoning in a field while your parents thought you were at a movie with Nicole and Becky. My school had a class like that. Most of the classmates didn't pay attention and now complain 10 years later that they never learned about taxes and credit card interest. Also, some parents were super upset about the school overstepping their boundaries by teaching basic budgeting. I can't imagine that situation has gotten any better in the last 10 years. I'm not against the class being taught, but at the end of the day you have to realize that all that stuff is easily learned once you are an adult with just a minimum amount of research. If someone isn't taking the 15 minutes it takes to learn how to wash their clothes properly or watch a YouTube video for a basic recipe as an adult when they actually need to do those things to function, no way in hell as a teen would they pay attention to a class that tried to teach them that. It's still a good idea to have the class, but it isn't some magical fix everyone seems to think it is. I am against the adding an extra hour of school though on top of regular school though. People love to parrot this idea. I promise you that for 90% of students it won't be any different from any other class, they just won't care. Yeah, we don't need a while class to teach us how to do laundry. Basic operation of the machine takes like 2 minutes to learn, there's even picture instructions on machines.